Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb just released data that changes everything we thought we knew about 3I/Atlas. JPL tracking confirms non-gravitational acceleration that shouldn't exist. The anti-tail? It's not behaving like any comet, ever. Here's what's terrifying. Loeb's analysis suggests 3I/Atlas is surrounded by a trillion objects, a swarm with 100 times more surface area, reflecting 99% of the light. They're not evaporating. They're not affected by solar wind. They're harvesting materials as they move. Let's dive right in. For months now, I've been staring at the same Hubble images, and every time I look at them, something feels wrong. 3I/Atlas has this anti-tail, this glowing extension that's supposed to follow basic physics. When a comet approaches the sun, one of two things happens. Either solar wind blows debris backward, creating that classic tail we all recognize, or the sun heats the surface, causing material to explosively outgas forward. Simple comet behavior we've observed hundreds of times. But 3I/Atlas, it's doing something else entirely. The anti-tail extends ahead of the object, yet it's not pointing at the sun. And here's what keeps me up at night. 3I/Atlas never came close enough to the sun for thermal heating to explain this. The distance was too great, and solar wind, which is powerful enough to strip away anything in its path, should be blowing this material backward. Instead, there's this teardrop-shaped cloud just sitting there, advancing in front of the object like it's being deliberately positioned. NASA confirmed this in their July 2025 images. This isn't observer error. This isn't image artifacts. This is real data showing behavior that shouldn't exist according to everything we know about how objects move through space. So I started asking a different question. What if we're not looking at a comet at all? That's when JPL's tracking data from November 2025 landed, and honestly, it made the situation even stranger. The numbers showed 3I/Atlas experiencing non-gravitational acceleration, about 0.002 of the sun's gravitational pull. Now, that might sound insignificant, but the pattern is what matters. This acceleration scales inversely with the square of the distance from the sun, exactly like gravity itself. That means throughout the entire orbit, the ratio between this mysterious force and solar gravity remains perfectly constant. Think about what that means. Normal comets experience random bursts of acceleration when ice vaporizes. It's chaotic, unpredictable, tied directly to how much sunlight hits the surface at any given moment. What JPL detected is the opposite. It's mathematical, precise, consistent across millions of kilometers. The dominant component pushes directly away from the sun in a radial direction, as if something is generating controlled, directional thrust. When I read JPL's technical report, one line stood out. The acceleration behaves as if 3I/Atlas is responding to a slightly reduced solar mass. That's not poetic language. That's what the math actually shows. Something is creating a force profile that mimics reduced gravity. This is where Avi Loeb's analysis becomes critical, and I mean that quite literally. Loeb looked at this data and asked a question that most scientists avoided. What if 3I/Atlas isn't traveling alone? His reasoning is elegant. If the object is surrounded by a swarm of smaller objects that don't share its non-gravitational acceleration, those objects would naturally drift closer to the sun relative to 3I/Atlas. Why? Because while 3I/Atlas is being pushed away by this mysterious force, the swarm follows normal gravitational trajectories. They'd fall slightly sunward compared to the main object. Loeb ran the calculations. At 3I/Atlas's current distance of 270 million kilometers from the sun, the displacement should place the swarm about 54,000 kilometers closer. That creates an angular separation of 0.7 arc-minutes on the sky when viewed from Earth. I pulled up the Hubble data again. The sunward elongation of that teardrop glow. 0.7 arc-minutes. Exact match. Now, one coincidence I can accept. But when the observed data matches theoretical predictions this precisely, we're not talking about coincidence anymore. We're talking about confirmation. But Loeb didn't stop there, and this is where the numbers become genuinely disturbing. He calculated what it would take to create the light signature we're seeing. 1 trillion microscopic objects, each carrying just 1/10,000th of 3 I/Atlas's mass, would have a combined surface area 100 times larger than the main object itself. That massive surface area would reflect 99% of the sunlight in the surrounding glow. The Hubble image from July 21st, 2025 shows exactly that ratio. 99% of the visible light comes from the cloud, not from 3 I/Atlas itself. These aren't random particles drifting in space. They're maintaining formation. They're not evaporating under intense solar radiation. They're not being scattered by solar wind. They're traveling with 3 I/Atlas in a precise geometric configuration that has remained stable for months. And this is where we need to confront something uncomfortable, because this behavior is impossible for natural materials. I've spent 2 decades studying space footage, and every comet we've documented follows the same pattern. Solar wind is roughly 1,000 times more powerful than any thrust created by outgassing ice. Any debris, any dust, any material around a comet gets blown backward within hours. The tail always points away from the sun. There are no exceptions in the natural world. Yet here's this swarm around 3 I/Atlas, completely ignoring forces that should dominate its behavior. The objects aren't evaporating. They aren't being pushed back. They're holding position like they're made of something we've never encountered before, or like they're actively compensating for solar wind and radiation pressure. Loeb's paper states it directly. As long as the objects do not experience non-gravitational acceleration from mass loss, they should maintain an anti-tail geometry pointing towards the sun. In other words, these objects are fundamentally different. They're either impossibly dense for their size, or they're not natural at all. I want to be clear about what I'm suggesting here, because I'm not making this up to sound dramatic. Our solar system contains far more raw materials than interstellar space. Micrometeoroids, dust grains, volatiles, frozen in tiny particles. If 3 I/Atlas traveled for millions of years through the cosmic void to reach us, it would be resource depleted by the time it arrived. Think about that journey. No stars, no planets, no materials for millions, possibly billions of kilometers. Then it enters a solar system rich with exactly what it needs. A cloud of harvesters spread across thousands of cubic kilometers, with 100 times the surface area of the main object, positioned ahead in the flight path where it can intercept materials. That's not random. That's efficient collection strategy. NASA plans the exact same approach for asteroid mining and lunar resource extraction. Maximize surface area, position collectors in the path of material flow, process resources in situ rather than transporting them. We call it smart engineering when we do it. What do we call it when we observe it around an interstellar object? You may have seen recent articles claiming 3 I/Atlas has ice volcanoes like Saturn's moon, Enceladus. I need to address this directly because it's being presented as a safe, natural explanation when the physics don't support it at all. Enceladus experiences cryovolcanism because Saturn's gravity creates massive tidal forces that squeeze its interior ocean. Those volcanic eruptions extend a few thousand kilometers before the material disperses. 3 I/Atlas is far smaller than Enceladus. It has no giant planet creating tidal forces, Yet we're seeing structures extending over 1 million kilometers. The energy required for ice volcanoes to reach that distance from an object this size would be staggering, and if 3I/Atlas possessed that kind of internal power, thermal stress would have torn it apart long before it reached our solar system. This is mainstream science reaching for comfortable answers when the uncomfortable truth is staring us in the face. Natural processes can't explain what we're observing. And we haven't even discussed the lances yet, those straight-line structures extending 1 million kilometers toward the sun that previous observations documented. Not curved like comet tails, not diffuse like dust. Straight, directional, precise. Combined with a swarm maintaining geometric formation, we have two separate phenomena suggesting active control. The lances could be directional outgassing used for course corrections, small adjustments to trajectory. The swarm could be resource collection. Independently, each seems unlikely. Together, they paint a picture of an object that's navigating deliberately while harvesting materials. This brings me to something I've avoided saying directly until now, but the data forces the question. What happens when 3I/Atlas leaves our solar system? If it's been collecting materials for months, if it has the capability to manufacture structures from raw resources, does it depart alone? Von Neumann probes, self-replicating spacecraft designed to travel between stars, aren't science fiction. They're a legitimate topic in SETI research because the mathematics work. One probe reaches a solar system, gathers local materials, constructs copies of itself, and those copies continue to other stars. It's the only practical way to explore a galaxy within reasonable time frames. If that's what we're witnessing, if 3I/Atlas creates even one duplicate before leaving, we'll know. We'll track two objects on divergent trajectories where there was only one before. Look, I understand this sounds extreme. I've had colleagues tell me I'm seeing patterns where none exist. But strip away all the theory and focus purely on what's been confirmed. JPL detected mathematically consistent acceleration that mimics reduced gravity. Hubble captured a swarm with 0.7 arc-minute displacement, matching Loeb's predictions exactly. Surface area analysis confirms 99% light reflection from surrounding objects. Solar wind, which dominates the behavior of every natural comet, has zero effect on this swarm's position. Every conventional explanation fails under scrutiny. Every natural process we know can't produce what we're observing. We're left with objects that are controlled, structured, and purposeful in ways that don't occur naturally. Whether that control comes from ancient programming or active intelligence operating right now, I don't know. But what I do know is this. 3I/Atlas is showing us something we've never seen before, and pretending it's just another comet because that's more comfortable isn't science. It's denial. The data is here. The calculations check out. And whatever is surrounding 3I/Atlas, it's real. Here's the bottom line. Avi Loeb's data proves 3I/Atlas is surrounded by a trillion-object swarm with behavior that no natural comet can explain. JPL confirms the acceleration. Hubble confirms the geometry. The numbers match perfectly. We're either witnessing the most anomalous natural object ever discovered, or we're watching technology from beyond our solar system harvest materials in real time. This isn't speculation. This is peer-reviewed data pointing to something extraordinary. And this story is still developing. We're tracking 3I/Atlas as it moves away from the sun, watching for any signs of replication, any changes in the swarm's behavior. You need to stay with us on this. So here's what I need you to do. Smash that like button if this analysis opened your eyes to what's really happening. Subscribe to Galactic Breaking News and hit the notification bell. We're breaking down every new development on 3i/Atlas with data you can verify yourself. Drop a comment below. Do you think we're looking at von Neumann probes, or is there an explanation we're all missing? The universe just showed us something we've never seen before. Don't miss what happens next.